Looking for the best opportunities in Perth property? Get the local area expertise you need from Momentum Wealth, WA's trusted property investment consultants. Market insights, advice and representation from award-winning buyers agents and REWA Hall of Fame inductees. Visit Momentum Wealth's website at momentumwealth.com.au to organise your obligation-free consultation today.
Welcome to the Smart Property Investment Show with your host, Phil Tarrant.
Okay, everyone, how are you going? Welcome to the podcast. It's been a real pleasure, privilege over 2020 delivering this in what has been a pretty topsy-turvy world, diarising the madness that is property investing. And who would have thought at the start of 2020 we'd be rounding out the year as we are right now. Our good friend, which is now with us for quite some time, COVID-19. Australia seems to be doing quite well. Announcement recently that our good friends across the ditch in New Zealand will be opening up their borders, and there's travel bubbles starting to emerge. So things starting to get back to some sort of level of normal. But I had no idea that starting off and kicking off 2020 that we'll be having the discussions that we've been having, and many ways doing the Smart Property Investment Show twice a week for the whole period of 2020. It's good to go back and have a look and listen to what thoughts were, what the narrative was at that point in time when we were dealing with the information that we knew. And at certain points of 2020, we were quite concerned about how property markets would fare, dire predictions from some of the major banks about price drops, considerable price drops, and the inherent value of property in Australia, which is critical to the national economy. So we now know what we know, but it's been good recording all of those different podcasts and giving a COVID diary really for 2020. So no doubt in 10 years' time, someone will listen back to it and think I'm an absolute idiot not knowing what I was talking about. But there you go. That's the power of podcasting, and I'll do it best I can and at a given time. Today, as we sort of exit 2020 and enter 2021, it's going to break down the top stories on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We like using this period of time to do top 5, top 10s of what's been popular. Just gives you a bit of an idea of how other people are engaging with smart property investment, what they find interesting, the type of stories, the type of content which is sparking their interest. And this is based on, I guess, our top 10 stories for 2020. What got the most clicks? So how many eyeballs saw it? And to give you some sense, we're talking tens and tens and tens of thousands of people reading these particular articles, these particular pieces of content. We're going to go through 10 to 1, the most popular pieces of content, most popular stories on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au over 2020. Joining me in the studio, Maja. How you going? You well? How's
I'm good,
things?
Phil. Thank you.
Yes.
Really good. Really busy time of year. But,
it is. Well, you've settled really well into your new role here, helping me within the consumer finance part of Momentum Media, steering our content, and you're a lot more educated every single day in this game, aren't you?
I think so. Yeah, I definitely feel like I'm sort of learning something new every day, and you've thrown me in the deep end straight away. So
deep ends are good. Well,
I've had to learn to swim.
You're gonna get chucked right in the deep end. But the good thing about property investment, Maja, to be fair, is it's got some really good people that work within it. So property investors love talking about property, so it's really easy to learn. And we're fortunate also that the professional sector are some very capable and talented people who do what they do well, and they're obviously very happy to chat to us.
Yeah, that's very true. And they're all very nice and kind people. They've all sort of welcomed me with open arms. So,
well, wait till you write some negative stories about them, and they'll be giving you no doubt a hard time. I occasionally get the small piece of hate mail from people if I say the wrong thing, but you know what? This is podcasting, so it's forgiving. But
exactly.
Anyway. So let's get into it. Top 10 stories on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au for 2020. Number 10, Maja. Brisbane suburbs near CBD boast above its 5.6% yields. Our latest insights from openagent.com.au found that suburbs near Brisbane Centre were delivering the biggest yields. Logan suburbs were the highest yields for houses. Logan Central 6.49%. Kingston, we've got a property in smart property investment 6.19%. And Woodridge also got another property 6.16%. That's pretty cool. What do you reckon, Maya? This is just classic Brisbane stories.
Yeah, classic Brisbane stories from back in February. But Phil, I know that you've done a podcast recently as well. I won't say too much about it, but I know that property investors are really excited about Brisbane, and there's some great predictions for 2021 and how Brisbane is going to sort of grow, and people are going to flock to Queensland to escape Sydney and Melbourne after the COVID disturbance. So yeah, Brisbane is the place to watch, I think, in 2021.
Go and tune in, smartpropertyinvestment.com, to do the podcast there. Brisbane always gets big headlines, and there's a lot of property investors up there and also buyers agents, so we'll keep a key focus on that through 2021. Mm-hmm. That's a bit of a mouthful, 2021.
It is, isn't it? It doesn't flow.
Number 9, the 9th most popular story. So we're going to go all the way to number 1 on this. Property market update, Sydney, July 2020. So this is a big part of smartpropertyinvestment.com.au, where we do specific property market updates every single month in all the capital cities. A lot more of that to come in 2021, so go and check it out. This particular story, Maya, I'll just read a quick abstract. Throughout the COVID-19 crisis, Sydney property values have fallen by 0.8%, while national capital has fallen by an average of 0.7%. How will the New South Wales capital fare for the remaining months of 2020? So remember, this is in July, right?
Yeah,
so
that was
this
the big
is only
question.
6 months ago, right? What we now know is a very different situation. So back then in July, we wrote, over the past 2 months, home values have seen a, inverted commas, mild downward pressure with capital city. That's such property talk. Have you got around this yet? Mild downward pressure, negative growth.
Yeah, getting used to it slowly.
With capital city dwelling values falling a total of 1.3%, according to CoreLogic, head of Tim Research. Good our friend of Smart Property Investment, Tim Lawless. How you going, Tim? Hope you're well. However, Macquarie University Business Analytics Professor Stefan Djurdjevic said that properties sold on average 8% below their valuation in May 2020 alone. According to him, it is unlikely that Sydney house prices have already dropped more substantially than the public have led to believe. Vendors and real estate agents have significantly reduced the reporting of sales results for houses and apartments in many suburbs. So back then in July 2020, everyone was talking about how property values were decreasing.
Yeah, and it sounds here like Stefan. He was sort of thinking that things were worse than when we were being told. But we know now, looking back, that things weren't quite as bad as might have been sort of predicted at the beginning of COVID, when the big banks were saying their worst case scenarios where the property prices were going to drop as much as 30%. So, yeah, it's good to see that that didn't come to fruition. But
yeah, who knows? It goes to show that 6 months in property is a very long period of time. So
it's a different world.
Yeah, it's an absolutely different world. And I think the last numbers coming out of CoreLogic was that there was a positive price growth in all the capital cities. So tale of two parts, tale of two cities really, proverbially, from July 2020 to December 2020 and into January 2021. So that was the 9th most popular story. The 8th, Maja, 5 regions tipped to rise. So this is from August 2020. Property investors are being urged to study the fundamentals, as low vacancy rates and inventory can still lead to portfolio growth in a COVID-19 world. An analyst, exclusively done for Smart Property Investment by InvestorKit, Director Arjun Paliwal, another good friend of Smart Property Investment, has shown that Australia is currently experiencing a property shortage. And for those of you who tuned to the podcast, Arjun is launching a new podcast, which is going to be across the Smart Property Investment podcast network, called Property Nerds.
Property Nerds,
So this is like a very nerdy story, and Arjun's happy to be called a property nerd. He loves data, and this is what this story was. It continues to the surprise of many, many suburbs across Australia are actually going through high levels of rental and price competition, with low entry levels and below 1.5% vacancy rates, he said. While much of the focus remains on Sydney and Melbourne, which have seen a reduction in rent due to falling migration level, Mr. Paliwal's research shows it's not a national issue. So again, this is 5 months ago.
Yeah, and I think it was this earlier this month, CoreLogic released a research paper saying that in the 3 months to November, the number of listings added to the market across Australia averaged around 39,000 a month, which was actually 20.8% higher than over the winter months.
Okay.
So that was some really interesting sort of data to see. Obviously, over the winter months, we did have sort of COVID was at its height in Australia. But, yeah, really good to see that recovering.
Very good.
Phil, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So, Maya, we'll go to number 7. We'll go to a break beforehand. Back in a moment.
Whether you're an avid property investor or about to buy your first property, why do it alone when you could partner with Australia's best buyer's agent? Director of Pure Property Investment, Property Investment Professionals of Australia board member and REB Buyer's Agent of the Year, Paul Glossop, can take your portfolio to the next level. Get in touch today to discuss your investment goals. Get one-on-one insight from Paul Glossop. And for the first 100 people, this service is completely free. Head to purepropertyinvestment.com today to schedule your consult with Paul Glossop directly.
Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show. My colleague here, editor, Consumer Wealth at Momentum Media, Maja, Garaca, Djurdjevic, getting stuck into the top 10 stories for 2020 on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. We're at number 7. Maja. RBA reveals May cash rate call. So obviously in May, the Reserve Bank of Australia has announced its decision on the official cash rate for May. Amid speculation, the central bank would hold rates despite the fallout of COVID-19. The central bank acted as most accountants predicted, holding the cash rate 0.25%, having previously stated it was the lower bound for Australian rates. According to Lang & Simmons Managing Director Leanne Pilkington, the central bank has already done its part in supporting the economy. Quote, the Reserve Bank governor recently challenged the government to focus on growth and productivity strategies to help the economy eventually emerge from the COVID-19 crisis. More efficient taxation solutions, including the removal of stamp duty, is an obvious place to start. Interest rates are already rock bottom. And on this score, the RBA has done this part. So this was in May. Well, there's been another cut since that point in time. And also, as alluded to here, removal of stamp duty. So that's being changed.
Exactly, Phil. And it was interesting to see the RBA. I think this year punters had an eagle eye on the Reserve Bank of Australia. They're sort of anticipating the latest cash rate call that first Tuesday of every month. I think more so than ever, that was something that, everyone sort of looked towards the bank to hear what they were going to decide and what they were going to say. And back in May, it was just sort of after they had cut the rates down to a historic low of 0.25. So everyone was wondering whether they were prepared to go further or, keep the rate as is. So, very interesting story to see and to sort of go back to that thought process.
So rates down 0.1%. And the cut was in, October.
Yes,
should know.
October.
Wow,
we should.
And whether or not that applies in your interest rates. But quick tip, if you haven't spoken to your banks for a little while, you can either get your loans refinanced, but what I often do is get on the phone to all my lenders and say, hey,
what can you do for me?
I don't think my rate is sharp enough. What are you going to do for me if they go down to nothing? There's some different tactics in order to try and best have that conversation with your lenders, and we've talked a lot on that on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au.
And I think the Australia Banking Agency, they sort of keep advocating and telling people to, call your bank up and see what they can do for you because you don't want to be paying higher rates than you should be.
Well, guess what? Your bank's probably not necessarily going to call you up and say, hey,
no,
Mr.
definitely
Tarrant, I'm
not.
going to save some money.
They will if they have a new product on the market.
Oh, they will. They will. If they want new business, but if you're an existing customer, don't expect them to give you a call. Call them. And be nice. That generally gets the best result. Story number 6 here, 6 most popular piece of content on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. This person normally gets a good headline. Property guru John McGrath predicts which suburbs will boom. This is from November. That's the sort of headline.
This
always
is really
going to get plenty
recent
of eyeballs on it. And this only being from November, and this is an aggregate of reads over the course of the year. So this has only been in market for 2 or 3 weeks, a month, and already 6 most popular stories. So must have resonated. Australia's leading real estate identity, John McGrath, has pinpointed the suburbs he believes will boom in a post-COVID world. In their latest 52-page report, go and check it out. It's not too bad. Has COVID changed real estate forever? ? Mr. McGrath's, I'm not even going to try and say that word, real estate agency explores, how do you say that? Eponymous? Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. See how quickly I move through that. But real estate agency explores with great detail and insight how the wants and needs of buyers and sellers have transformed during the pandemic. Quote, there's zero doubt that the pandemic will cause sectors of the population to adjust the way of their thinking and behaviour, McGrath writes in the introduction report. And I read that introduction and I sort of flicked through the report as well. He spoke a little bit about sort of sea change, tree change type dynamics, but also the inherent value of our capital city markets. Thoughts, Maja?
Well, it's interesting to see, like you said, it's only, this is mid-November that this article was published and that it's getting such high traction on SPI. Obviously, it sort of tells us that property investors are sort of, looking to get get back into the game and go after their sort of next properties. That means that, confidence is booming at the moment. So they're obviously sort of interested to find out which suburbs will perform the best and where they should sort of move next. So it's really interesting to see that, yeah.
And expect to see exactly the same headline over the course of 2021.
Yeah, definitely.
Talking about which suburbs will boom, because that's what people like to read.
Exactly. And I think that's what most sort of property investment experts are sort of working on at the moment, is trying to predict those suburbs that will sort of perform best next year.
Yeah.
So,
and guess what? I don't know where they are. That's our job, is to ask the right questions to people that do actually know.
Our job is to report. And,
it is. But
not
this
to
next
predict
story, though. Well, I'd like to maybe I do a bit of crystal ball gazing and give my opinion on stuff occasionally. And one of them was at the outbreak of COVID-19. I remember speaking to a number of different people about what I think the government would do in terms of market stimulus, and part of it did play out. This story here, 50K boost on the cards for new property purchases. Story from May, a radical plan to kickstart economic recovery post-COVID-19 could see Australians handed 50 grand for buying a new home. It's just one element of a 7-point plan put forward by the Property Council to stimulate construction, grow skills, attract investment and boost confidence across the property industry. Considering it, quote, demand stimulus to kickstart construction and the economy. The Property Council believes such a scheme could stimulate the building of 50,000 new dwellings, support more than 200,000 jobs and bring market demand for new housing. The 50 grand grant would only be applicable to purchase of newly constructed dwellings and expects to cost $2.5 billion to the federal government. So this is sort of part of the stimulus that the government worked through COVID-19. And I know, Maja, when you were sort of working across our small business type products, you were right across the government stimulus. Yeah. This was part of it, so to stimulate the buying of new homes. It was also, most of the government stimulus has been around putting more money in the back pockets of Australians to buy more stuff or getting jobs, creating jobs, getting people back in jobs as quickly as possible. So the construction industry inherently connected into the economic well-being of the nation. Getting those people in construction, building stuff helps a lot. You've got tradies doing things, which is good. They're getting paid, but then also all the building materials suppliers. So an area where the government will always concentrate on stimulus if it needs to inject or get momentum into the economy will be around construction. We also saw the home building grant. Well, a couple of months. And the renovation type stuff.
Yeah, a couple of months after the Property Council sort of came out with this plan and sort of urged the government to invest money into, to help people buy new homes, the government actually announced its Home Builder Plan, so providing eligible owner-occupiers with a grant of $25,000 to build a new home or substantially renovate an existing one. So we've actually seen last month the government extend this out until March next year, because it's been popular. It's helping support, the small construction companies, the tradies. So, Aussies are going out there and buying new homes, it seems. Yeah,
it's good. Or renovating what they got. You still got to pony up a fair bit. I think you had 200 grand or somewhere other.
Exactly. You do. So,
big bananas. But all right, story number 4, the fourth most popular article, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. Remember also, for you not going directly to the website, we're across all the social media stuff. Smart Property HQ, if that's how you like to get your information. So the first to know what's happening in property right across the nation. That's where you need to be checking it out. Number 4, government approves of rent relief mandatory code. This is from April. Really sort of early days for COVID-19. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has revealed that the National Cabinet, that's a sort of body of ministers who make the main decisions, for those of you that don't know, has reached an agreement on a mandatory code for the provision of rent relief by commercial landlords to tenants. In a press conference today, Mr. Morrison said the mandatory code will be legislated and regulated as appropriate in each state and territory jurisdiction. It follows his comments last Friday, which alluded to the development of such a code. He said the code will apply to tenancies where the tenant or landlord is eligible for JobKeeper program and where they have a turnover of $50 million or less. So this is way back when there was a lot of organisations that were doing it tough, businesses, because essentially their lifeline to revenue was cut off.
Exactly.
Gyms, restaurants, hospitality business,
Cafes.
anyone on JobKeeper. So the government pretty much said to commercial landlords, hey, you got to cut them some slack. And their view was to just sensibly negotiate amongst yourselves. Now, a lot of commercial landlords said, okay, sure. And they just went to everyone, well, show me your financials. And most people went, I'm not going to provide you my financials. So how many people benefit from it? I don't know, Maja.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, Phil, but I know at the time, Phil, that, many commercial landlords were also worried about their own sort of pockets. A lot of them had maybe lost their jobs or, had their hours cut, their pay cut. So they were having to sort of go out there and, negotiate with their tenants and provide this rent relief. So it was a really tough position to be in at the time. And we know that the bank sort of stepped up and said, come talk to us and we'll see what we can do sort of on your loan as well. So, yeah, April, it was a massive month, I think.
Well, I remember you were covering across for the SME sector doing it hard. So you said 1 million companies on JobKeeper.
Yeah, 1 million companies on JobKeeper at the time. So that was, I think, over 3 million employees or something.
That's crazy.
It was massive.
And to give some sense for those of you who aren't too familiar with the business landscape, you probably know this better than me, and I'll get these numbers wrong, but I think there's about 2.6 million businesses in Australia, about 3,500 are large businesses. So out of 2.6
majority
million,
are small businesses.
3,500 are large businesses. And give some sense of that, that's over 200. There's only 3,500 companies in Australia with over 200 employees.
Yeah.
There's 50-odd thousand medium-sized businesses, so between like 10 and 200. The rest, i.e. 2.5 million businesses,
are all small
businesses.
Under 20 employees or so,
they're small businesses. So most of Australia, people
that's what holds our
for,
economy up, exactly. So all of the small businesses across Australia were in a really tough position back in April, and unfortunately a lot of them still are. We know that still there's about 500,000 of them on JobKeeper, so it's quite a hard sort of position to be in at the moment, and everyone's sort of fearing that March cliff. But speaking of the March cliff, there's the next story, property cliff.
Yeah,
Phil.
we'll get into the property cliff, but we're going to go a break beforehand. Then we're going to get into the cliff when we come back. It's back in a moment.
Are low interest rates impacting on your investment returns? It's time to rethink. Rethink Investing creates wealth for clients through the strategic purchase of positively geared, high cash flow commercial property. Industrial properties, retail assets, or office spaces can be a smart investment option that produces significant and long-term return on investment. Rethink your investment options and look to commercial property. Learn more at rethinkinvesting.com.au. Rethink Investing, Australia's #1 commercial buyers agency.
Welcome back, everyone. Phil Tarrant, host of the Smart Property Investment Show with Maja, Garaca, Djurdjevic, who, if I'm not, I'll try and do 100% of the podcast, but sometimes my commitments take me elsewhere. So Maja will be standing in for me. So you're in very good hands over 2021 with the Smart Property Investment Show and also some of that stuff to do. But you also hear me and Maja are getting on the podcast more regularly as well, just to chat through stuff. And these are good sort of stories. These are just running through what's been happening across the news. Remember also Inside Property, which is our piece that we do for social media every single week as well. So go and check it out. You also hear the podcast where you're listening to this right now. That's really us going behind the news. So giving you a bit of an insight into how we go about collecting the information, how we make our decisions on what we choose to comment on, focus on, curate, aggregate. So it's a bit of a view to what journos do for a living, and it's not all drinking beer and and
there hasn't been much drinking beer this year.
There hasn't been any of it at all. But story number 3, we alluded to it before the break. Everyone was talking about the JobKeeper cliff, which was supposed to be the September cliff, which was supposed to be when all the businesses come off JobKeeper, how the backside was going to fall out of the economy. It didn't really happen. There was also a property cliff. So this is the property cliff. Will prices fall from September? So this is the July story. Amid unprecedented economic uncertainty, many of us are waiting with bated breath to determine what will happen to the property market in the months ahead. The question on everyone's lips is, will house prices fall, writes Aaron Christie Davis. So this is an opinion piece from Aaron. Aaron, again, a good friend of Smart Property Investment. How are you? Aaron, hope you're well and having a good Christmas. Predictions from the banks in industry have varied widely. The Commonwealth Bank has predicted a worst-case scenario where house prices will fall by almost a third by the end of 2022. Under a more optimistic scenario, house prices would fall by 11%. A more optimistic scenario, fall by 11%. Okay, wow. And all the capitals on the rise. NAB's worst-case scenario simply predicts a 30% drop by 2021. Westpac's base case scenario anticipates 15% fall in house prices in 2020 and a further 5% fall in 2021. And ANZ's base case scenario predicts a 4.1% decline in 2020 and a 6.3% decline in 2021. HSBC is predicting house prices to fall between 2 and 12% in 2021. AMP Capital's Shane Oliver has forecast prices to fall as much as 20%. It's like the weather.
It's crazy,
one
isn't
person
it?
comes
And
out
this
and
is
says
July.
it's going to rain.
Yeah. Everyone else, confirms their
We
forecast.
don't know yet.
But
Maybe it's going to go
we
there.
don't
but
know,
as
do
it sits
we?
right
Yeah.
now, they've got it wrong.
Yeah, they definitely have, thankfully. And it's funny to see that was just, a few months ago, July, and all the banks, all our big banks were sort of on board and, telling us the same story. The property prices were essentially going to crash this year and then into next year as well. So it just shows how this COVID crisis has sort of been so unpredictable and it's been, tough on everyone to sort of get their hands around. And
It has been.
Yeah,
and I think this story is pretty much it's pulling in a whole bunch of different isolated but connected factors, and that is JobKeeper finishing at the end of September.
Exactly.
So therefore, a whole bunch more people getting sacked was one point. So people are going, okay, companies aren't getting JobKeeper no more. Therefore, more people are going to be laid off. Therefore, there's more unemployment. Therefore, more people aren't going to be paying their mortgage. Therefore, more people are going to be selling their houses at a reduced rate because there's going to be so many houses on the market, and therefore negative pressure. Now, I think this might have been prior to the announcement.
This was prior to the extension of JobKeeper. That's right. So everyone was expecting, at the end of obviously it was still a very tough situation at the end of September that, everyone was going to come off JobKeeper, as you said. Unemployment was going to rise. The economy was going to tank. Businesses were going to go insolvent. So obviously, to think that we sort of avoided that, that's, that was sort of possible just a couple of months ago or so.
Well, I think the numbers are, and I haven't seen it for a little while, Maja, is that 70% of the people who were stood down, laid off, lost their jobs during the start of COVID are back working again, right?
Yeah,
so
a lot of people are back working,
bad.
but there is still the fear. I was just talking to Kate Carnell actually the other day and the ATO, and they still sort of are worried that, at the end of March this is going to happen, all these predictions for September, that basically, once these small businesses do come off JobKeeper at the end of March, that they're sort of going to have to let a lot of their staff go because they just won't have the money to keep them on the books. So, and obviously we're just going through the Christmas period now, so shops are seeing a sort of more, foot traffic, and everyone's out. It's summer, everyone's out in the cafes, the restaurants.
At a 7-year high, right?
Exactly. So how's that sort of going to, on the other side of
so
the holiday season?
So JobKeeper 2.0 finishes in March.
Yes.
But then there's potentially a December cliff because there's going to be a whole bunch of organisations that won't qualify for the next quarter, which is reduced anyway. Yeah. So there's quite a lot happening.
And then JobSeeker as well. That's being reduced. And so it's going to be a tough time. And then we're sort of heading into obviously autumn and winter again, and sort of looking at Europe at the moment, how things are faring there. We just don't know what's around the corner, do we?
And it's all people coming off their mortgage holidays as well, which again may compound this. So investors so this is where the banks sort of said, hey, don't worry about paying your mortgages for a little while. But that's just extended your loan terms. It's a completely different chat to what this is right now. So quite a lot of moving parts of, and you need to keep abreast of all these different, as I mentioned, sort of isolated, independent components which combined can really influence sentiments and appetite. The reason why property at the moment is sparking because there's not a lot of stock on market. So a lot of people are still waiting to see what happens. So they're not listing their properties for sale. Yeah. Those that are listing their property for sale are either being opportunistic because there is this buyer demand, or they're distressed, or there's some other reason why they need to sell. So no doubt we'll see more of this moving forward. We'll keep reporting on it at smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. The penultimate, I love using that word, story, which I only just really worked out is the thing before the major thing. Yeah. Of most popular stories, most clicked on content on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au through 2020. 10 places you shouldn't sell property right now. So this is Nelly.
This is January.
This is January, right? There are 10 locations where investors are better off holding onto their properties rather than rushing to sell. According to real estate expert, this particular story says investors in certain suburbs who hold onto their properties rather than selling during 2020 will be the long-term winners in the Australian real estate market. The quote from this person says, seller's regret is a common seller's regret. That should have a apostrophe on it. Probably should do, I think. It's the ownership of that. Anyway, I'm being a sub-editor. Seller's regret is a common issue that I've come across in the property market during the last 50 years with property owners regretting selling their properties too early ahead of major bounce in the real estate markets. Research shows that houses that sold for a profit are typically held for 10 years and units 8.8 years. In contrast, house owners that sold at a loss typically held their properties for 5.8 years. Units are sold at 5.7 years. So, look, yeah.
And guess what the top 10, market is?
What was it?
Brisbane.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
So it's pretty much saying don't sell, hold on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I know I'm sort of new to this game, but I keep hearing sort of a lot about Brisbane. So.
Well, a lot of people have been buying up there, myself included, for quite some time, waiting for something to happen.
So it seems everyone's still sort of waiting for something to happen.
But you know what? Like I see stories like this, and if I want to be a bit contrite about it, I go, well, no shit. You know, the longer you hold on to your property, if you've bought it well, the longer you hold on to it, you're probably got to make more money. So
that's true.
You know, a bit horses for courses, this one. And stories like this, I go, oh, okay, what's the real reason why they're actually saying this? And in Brisbane as well, maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. But, a bit cynical about that story. 10 places you shouldn't sell the property right now. Well, a lot of people buy and hold strategy, they never sell, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, number one.
Let's move on, yeah.
And I remember this story.
This was a massive one.
There's a lot of nervous people around. I guess property investors were really nervous in 2020, a couple of points. Number one, when the banks came out, and I mentioned beforehand saying prices are going to fall by up to 30%, all the major banks, and I read through them before, that made property investors nervous. There was another time that made property investors nervous. That's when the government's come out saying you can't kick out tenants if they can't pay their bills. You need to negotiate. That made a lot of people nervous. And it also made a lot of investors angry because you had a lot of opportunistic punters out there. And we spoke about this on smartpropertyinvestment.com.au as well as some other things where they just went, give me a rent reduction. You're going, no. They're going, give me a rent reduction. You can't throw me out.
Yeah.
And they're going, well, have you still got your job? Yes. Why do you need a rent reduction? There's no hardship. So a lot of people tried to, inverted commas, take the piss, right? And there was like some, I'll call it, idiot groups that were formed, graffitiing on the side of walls saying, landlords are evil, let's all stand up together, some sort of like left-leaning solidarity group saying, let's club together and no one pay rent anymore.
Yeah.
People are like,
they can't kick us all out.
Come on, come on.
Yeah.
And then the other point that made a lot of investors nervous was when Airbnb was declared illegal in New South Wales. And this is a top story back from April. I remember this because a lot of investors had gone down a pathway of sort of getting these quasi lifestyle investment / holiday type places / let's make some money out of Airbnb. And the reason why they did that was because of COVID, right? It was pretty much going, you can't go and share stuff because people got to be locked up.
Exactly. And you weren't allowed to travel at the time. So I don't know if you remember the New South Wales arts minister having to resign.
That's right.
For
he
going
drove down south.
He went to his own holiday. I'm pretty sure it was Pearl Beach on the Central Coast.
Yeah, it could have been.
But he went to his own house. So that was his own holiday house. And he had to resign because he was in breach of the coronavirus lockdown rules.
Same thing happened to a UK-based minister as well. I can't remember his name, but this story here, Airbnb declared legal in New South Wales from April. As a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, market-leading service, I don't know why we call it a market-leading service, Airbnb, should just be Airbnb, bit too PR-y, has been declared illegal in New South Wales. You're going to make sure that doesn't happen anymore, Maja.
This is before my time, I just want to say.
Make sure this is under new, unless you want to come and advertise Airbnb, then you're obviously market-leading. I'm just being funny there. Under new regulations, Airbnb and other short-stay accommodation options have been declared illegal, with the government reminding residents to stay at home. The new coronavirus regulations make clear that no one should be staying anywhere other than their own permanent home. If they break restrictions, they could be fined or imprisoned if they are found to be doing so without, inverted commas, reasonable excuse. So this is smack bang when 28th of March was the worst day in Australia for COVID-19, is where we had the most cases.
Yeah, it was horrible. And at the time, the government was saying it isn't illegal for property investors or, to advertise their Airbnbs, but it was illegal for guests to go there without breaking the law. So there was a lot of grey area as well, where people just didn't know what to do and what was the right thing to do. So obviously that was the most read story, with people just wanting to find out what those rules and regulations were and, not wanting to sort of break them. And
And it goes to show as a property investor, Maja, just how often you can't plan for stuff. Like who would have thought, I'm going to buy an Airbnb place and rent it out, that the government goes,
no, you can't.
Whether it's policy, whether it's regulation, or whether it's something like a pandemic where they go, you can't do that no more.
Yeah.
So the best property investors I know are always prepared. They'll have a pivot. They'll have some way to change. There'll be a multi-use. Like this Airbnb stuff, you could have just turned it into a normal investment property, right?
That's
what
right,
a lot of them did.
Yeah.
But what happened, though, is that a lot of these Airbnb properties now, they're doing exceptionally well,
I was just going to
particularly
say
if it's
they're
in
doing
Byron Bay, right?
amazingly well at the moment. Yeah, Byron Bay, that's right.
And now all
Hollywood.
the locals hate it now because you can't find anyone who's got an investment property in Byron Bay largely is an Airbnb property. So, this is the way it works. But some pretty tough stuff. There's some property management business that just focus on Airbnb. They got hurt through that.
Exactly.
So, struggle. But anyway, so that's it. Airbnb declared illegal. New South Wales, top story. I thought we've done pretty well there.
Yep, that's it. That's it for the year.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see if for sort of next year the news stories will be shaped by COVID or if, there'll be something else on the radar.
Well, people I'm talking to reckon it's going to be a pretty mad year in property.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Brisbane finally is meant to.
Who knows? I'm going to make any predictions at all because that's not my job. I'll make sure I get other people to give predictions and we'll work out whether
and we'll write stories on the back of them.
We'll write stories about it, give them a hard time about it. But so if you're predicting or forecasting, watch out. We're watching you. smartpropertyinvestment.com.au. But if you just found us, we've been around for many, many years. Our objective is to make sure property investors are better informed, have more information to make more informed decisions. So by investors, for investors, we are investors ourselves. You can follow us on our portfolio tab on the website, wherever you're reading this right now or listening to it, where we share our own portfolio, and that's a very popular part of smartpropertyinvestment.com. You remember Smart Property HQ, if that's social media, if that's where you like to get your info. If you're not yet subscribing to this podcast, press the subscribe button now, or you can subscribe to our newsletter so the first to know what's going on every single day, smartpropertyinvestment.com.au/subscribe. Maya, thanks for your time today. All very good.
Thank you for having me, Phil.
Nice one. And we'll be back again next time. Until then, bye-bye.
The information featured in this podcast is general in nature and does not take into consideration your financial situation or individual needs and should not be relied upon. Before making any investment, insurance, tax, property or financial planning decision, you should consult a licensed professional who can advise whether your decision is appropriate for you. Guests appearing on this podcast may have a commercial relationship with the companies mentioned.